I want to ask you a profound question. Have you ever heard the cry of God's heart? Have you ever heard in your spirit the cry of God's heart? Frankly, I have not heard it very often, but a couple of years ago, I heard it so profoundly. I've written it down and been reflecting on it for years, and this is a vital force behind what we do at the Kingdom Institute. I literally heard in my spirit. I sensed. I did not see with my eyes. I did not hear with my physical ears, but I sensed in my spirit in a time of communion, in a time of reflection, of Bible study, and just being with God about not only this assignment, but others. I heard God ask this question. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. His question to me was a cry of the heart, not in anger, but just a, and the question is, when will my people in business, that's who he speaks to me mostly about, when will my people in business believe? When will they start believing that I am a supernatural God? When will my people in business start believing that I am a supernatural God? I could sense his pain in that I've given you everything you need. When will you start walking in the supernatural power that lives within you to transform nations as part of the Kingdom Institute vision? Today's foundation verses, and we're going to take a different approach today. I'm going to give you a snapshot, a biographical snapshot of a very important man in United States history. And I want to give you some background of what he did to help transform a nation by living out loud Ephesians 3:20. I'm just going to read two variations of Ephesians 3:20, and from there tell you the story of George Washington Carver. Ephesians 3:20. This is the New King James Version. When will people start believing I am a supernatural God? Ephesians 3:20, New King James Version. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in you. Born-again believer, filled with the baptism of Holy Spirit, the power is within you. The power of salvation gets you into heaven. The power of Holy Spirit is when you begin to do supernaturally above and beyond all that God has ready for you. Ephesians 3:20 in the Amplified Version. I like the way the Amplified Version reads in Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to carry out his purpose, not yours, his purpose, and to do super abundantly more than I would dare ask or think, infinitely beyond our greatest prayers, hopes, or dreams. Infinitely beyond your greatest prayers, hopes, or dreams. Here it is again. According to his power that is at work within us. So I want to take a snapshot. The Lord brought me back to George Washington Carver a few days ago in my home office, and I picked up a booklet that I'm going to be reading from, a pamphlet, a booklet, and give us a living example of how a man born in slavery, barely surviving through his early years, teenage years, literally transformed a nation because he believed in the power of God that was alive and working with him. George Washington Carver. I'm going to read some excerpts from a wonderful book by William Federer. We'll put a link to this book, at least the U.S. Amazon version of the book, for you. It's entitled George Washington Carver, His Life and Faith in His Own Words. His life and his faith in his own words. Dr. Federer, 85% of this book, or more, 90%, are literally excerpts of letters, excerpts of speeches in Dr. Carver's words. These are not secondhand opinions. These are the actual words that he said, and within the letters that he wrote, excerpts from that. George Washington Carver was born a slave in the Civil War. Not really sure what year it was. It was not recorded. His father died just a few days after he was born. His mother was kidnapped, and George himself was left in a field, basically, I suppose, to die. But he was found by a couple, and through a series of many homes he lived in through his teenage years up to his early 20s, George Washington Carver then attended college, and from there, we're going to just fast forward. I don't have time to tell you all the phenomenal ways that God was on this man from the very beginning, being born a slave in the South. I want to pick it up where George was invited by Booker T. Washington, the founder of Tuskegee University, prestigious university, to come and join him on the faculty. And I want to pick it up to what the offer of Dr. Washington was to Dr. Carver. Booker T. Washington wrote a letter in 1896 to George, and this is what was in the letter. Dr. Washington said, "I cannot offer you money, position, or fame. The first two things you have." Dr. Carver had already carved out, if you will, a great, great legacy even early in his life. "These things I now ask you to give up. I offer you in their place, work, hard work, hard work. The challenge of bringing people from degradation, poverty, and waste to full manhood." I want to read that again. The challenge of bringing people from degradation, poverty, and waste to full manhood, transforming men, and you will see, transforming entire societies. The response from Dr. Carver was, "I shall be glad to cooperate with you in doing all I can through Christ, who strengthens me to better the condition of our people." The offer was made and accepted. Now I'm going to jump to the end of the story and come back and fill in some gaps. Here's part of the end of the story of from Tuskegee on, what George Washington Carver was able to do with, I have a jar of peanuts here. Peanuts. Anybody knows me knows how much I enjoy. I want to say love. I love Jesus. I love my wife. So I'm careful about saying I love things beyond the Lord and my wife. But I like peanuts. This is a jar of peanuts I keep here in the studio. And every now and then I grab a mouthful of them at night. I may have half a cup every now and then as a snack. Organic, non-salted peanuts, okay? I enjoy organic peanut butter, crunchy on bananas. That's my breakfast most every morning, a small banana, organic, crunchy peanut butter. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, yeah. If I'm cooking for myself on my own, a lot of times I just do peanut butter and jelly. So yeah, I'm a big peanut fan. With anyone that knows anything about George Washington Carver knows what's coming. I'm simply going to take as a visual, and those of you watching on YouTube or other places, here's two halves of a peanut. I'm placing it on a Bible for a very important reason, because that's going to play a huge part in where we're going with the rest of this story. The peanut laying on the Bible. I want to read just a few of the things. Sit back and listen. Sit back and listen. Exceedingly abundantly, above all you can think, dream, or imagine, according to the power working in this case, George Washington Carver. And I read from Federer's book, page 18. Carver discovered and popularized hundreds of uses for the peanut. He did the same for sweet potato, pecan, soybean, cowpea, wild plum, and okra. A partial list of the items derived from peanuts compiled by the Carver Museum at Tuskegee include exceedingly abundantly. When will we start believing that God can take even a peanut and through us and His power do exceedingly abundantly? Just sit back and listen to a few of the items that Carver created in his workshop. He called it God's little workshop. In beverages alone, the category beverages, he created through the peanut, blackberry punch. I bet that's good. cherry punch, lemon punch, orange punch, peanut punch. Well, of course. Beverages for ice cream, evaporated peanut beverages, dry coffee, instant coffee from peanuts, 32 different kinds of milk. More on that in a minute. Dehydrated milk, flakes, buttermilk. Those are some of the beverages, just the beverages from the peanut. Food, well, guess what? Peanut butter, salted peanuts, peanut flour, peanut flakes, peanut meal, cream from peanut milk, butter from peanut milk, egg yolk, breakfast food, bisque powder, cream cheese, cheese pimento, cheese sandwich, cheese tutti frutti from peanuts. Cocoa, crystallized peanuts, granulated potatoes, potato nibs, golden nuts, mock coconut, pancake flour, peanut hearts, peanut surprise, peanut wafers. I would love those, I'm sure. Pickle from peanuts. Sweet pickle, shredded peanuts, substitute asparagus. And it continues. Keep listening to these, the exceeding abundance of God working through in his power through one man. Meat substitutes, another category. Mock meat, mock chicken, mock goose, mock veal cutlet, mock oyster, peanut sausage. I would really like to taste some of Dr. Carver's peanut sausage. That sounds delicious. I'm getting hungry. Here are some sauces and ingredients from the peanut coming out of God's little workshop at Tuskegee Institute. Chili sauce, chop suey sauce, Worcestershire sauce, vinegar, spice vinegar, salad oil, cooking oil, mayonnaise, molasses. I'm skipping over a lot of them. I'm just giving you a small taste of even what the few excerpts in this book. Meat tenderizer, cheese nut sage, flavoring paste, peanut relish, peanut tofu sauce. Oh, you can keep the tofu sauce. I'm not interested. Starch, white pepper from peanuts, white pepper, yeast, some candies and desserts. Now, here we go. Now we're talking. Peanut brittle, bar candy, peanut popcorn bars. Oh my gosh. Popcorn is my other favorite snack. If it's not a little peanuts at night, a couple of times a week, I don't hate to admit, I have some popcorn. Organic popcorn, but peanut popcorn bars, coated peanuts, peanut chocolate fudge. Now you're talking, Doc. After dinner mints, lemon drops, orange drops, synthetic tapioca, sugar, cream candy, peanut cake, peanut dainties, and peanut kisses. Medicines derived by Dr. Carver in his laboratory with his students at Tuskegee. Castora substitute, emulsion for bronchitis, goiter treatment, iron tonic, laxatives, medicine similar to castor oil. Brenda and I are big in using castor oil to keep our health. Rubbing oils, tannic acid. Cosmetics, ladies. Cosmetics derived from peanuts. All-purpose cream, face cream, vanishing cream. I could use some of that on some of these wrinkles. Cold cream, shaving cream. Used some this morning. Don't know if it's derived from peanuts. I'm sure it wasn't. Baby massage cream, fat-producing cream. I don't want any of that. Face lotion, hand lotion, rubbing oil for hair and scalp. Put a little oil on my hair today. Peanut oil shampoo. I bet I'd like that one too. Toilet soap, face ointment, antiseptic soap. Dandruff cure, tan remover. It's just some of the cosmetics. I'm going to keep reading because I want you, as I am, overwhelmed by reading what can be produced through one peanut and the supernatural power of God working through one man. I want to share some more. I want you to be overwhelmed with what's possible. Now, here's some animal feed and farming things, ingredients, discoveries. Hen food for laying, molasses feed, peanut hay meal, peanut hull meal, peanut hull bran. Don't know the difference between those two, but it's two different things. Stock feed meal, fertilizer, soil conditioner, insecticides. Peanuts were indeed one of the mainstays for a while in the South for feeding cattle. I do know that. Now, dyes and stains and paints from peanuts. Leather stains for mahogany, wood stains, shoe and leather blackening. My first job was a shoe shine boy in a small town in northern Kentucky, Bardstown, Kentucky. A little barbershop there. Some of you have heard the story if you've been with me on the podcast all these years. That was my first job as an independent contractor, shining shoes. I really enjoyed it. Shoe polish, metal polish, writer's ink, printer's ink, dyes for cloth, special peanut dye, non-toxic pigments, and now just some general things he created, he developed in the Tuskegee workshops. Adhesives, alcohol, paper rope, mats, synthetic cotton, synthetic silk, coke from hulls, plastic, synthetic rubber, lubricating oils, axle grease, guys. Axle grease from peanuts. Created, developed by Dr. Carver and his students and his staff. Soaps and detergents, laundry soap, sweeping compound, washing soap, cleansing for hands, even bleach from peanuts. Construction. Okay, I know a lot of you guys listening to this, you're in construction, as I was, home building, both hands-on and then helping manage at the corporate level in a home building organization. Here we go. Wall boards from peanut hulls, building wall boards from the hulls of peanuts. Sizing for walls, carpet, linoleum, insulation boards, wood fiber, synthetic marble, highway paving material, glue, even nitroglycerin from peanuts. And the last category I'll share that was in the book, in Federer's book, was fuel. Gas, gasoline, diesel fuel, eliminating oil, briquettes, and charcoal from peanut shells. And that's not all of them. There were hundreds of inventions. I just listed a few. I wanted you to be literally, psychologically, mentally, and hopefully spiritually overwhelmed by what one man and one peanut can do for the glory of God, and how what he did literally not only transformed the South and the economy of the South, which we don't have time to go into all those details, but also transformed the economy of a nation, even through and during the United States Depression. So now I want to shift from all the products and all the inventions and the overwhelming impact of these and what they've had on this country and literally the world. I want to go back and revisit what was working within him in his own words. This is the exhortation. This is the prophetic exhortation and edification I have for you in today's podcast. I want to read in his words. In 1920, Dr. Carver was speaking to the North Carolina Young Christians Men Association. And this is a story he recounted on how he began receiving these true kingdom revelations, these kingdom inventions from God. This is in his own words how he recounted how this began. He shared with these young men. He said, years ago, I went to my laboratory and said, "Dear Mr. Creator, God, please tell me what the universe was made for." I want you to think of how we often think of what's our destiny. What do we do? The big. Look at what Dr. Carver did to begin the peanut process of all of his inventions. And he recants, "Please tell me, God, what the universe was made for." And in his own words, he said, the great Creator answered, "You want to know too much for that little mind of yours. Ask for something more your size, little man." That's Dr. Carver's words. Then I asked, "Please, Mr. Creator," George said, "tell me what man was made for." Again, the great Creator replied, "You're still asking for too much. Cut down on the extent and improve the intent." I'm going to repeat that. Cut down on the extent, the overriding universal size, and improve the, if you will, the specific intent. So Dr. Carver, as he was telling these young Christian men, so then I asked, "Please, Mr. Creator, will you tell me why the peanut was made?" God responded, "That's better, but even that, then, is infinite. Carter didn't realize. Remember, I just read just a few of what was to come after this conversation with God. George asked, what was the peanut created for? He said, and God said, it's beyond your even finite, it's infinite mind. What do you want to know about the peanut? God was narrowing it down. Mr. Creator, can I make milk out of the peanut? From extent to intent, getting very, very specific. And God's response, according to Dr. Carver, after being asked, can I make milk out of a peanut? And God responded, what kind of milk do you want? Good Jersey milk or just plain boarding house milk? And George responded, good Jersey milk. And then the great Creator taught me how to take the peanut apart and put it together again. And out of the process has come forth all these products. A few months after this story was recorded. I hope you're already getting it. I'm asking Holy Spirit to speak through you on this. I don't have to explain everything. My job is to make you thirsty. My job is to make you, the spiritually hungry, thirsty, to hear the truth from one of many examples we could use, but one great hero of the word, George Washington Carver. In his words, I pray this is making you thirsty. I'm not through. I've got a few more points to make and then a closing charge. The next year, in 1921, as recorded by Federer in the book, Dr. Carver was addressing the U.S. House and Ways Committee in Washington, D.C. He was given 15 minutes initially on their calendar. But once he started speaking, the chairman said, you go as long as you want, Dr. Carter. They were enthralled. And 1 hour and 45 minutes later, as he was explaining all the things he had done and was doing and had been successful in transforming, if you will, the society of the South, farming, all of these products, the chairman asked Dr. Carver, how did you learn all these things? Apparently, this is recorded in the minutes of the congressional hearings. How did you learn all these things? And Carver answered, from an old book. What book? Asked the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He said, the Bible. The chairman inquired, does the Bible tell about peanuts? Does the Bible tell about peanuts? Thus the illustration, if you're watching this video. And Carver replied, no, sir. Does the Bible tell about peanuts? No, sir. But it does tell about the God who made the peanut. I asked him to show me what to do with the peanut, and he did. And he did. I want to read one more excerpt, as I'm going to give you some homework and a charge from this. I hope you're 10% as excited about what you're hearing through what can be done with one man. One man believing in the supernatural power of God working in him and through him to literally transform society. On page 73 and 74, it's recounted on a conversation that Dr. Carver had with a very prestigious Christian man. And it's recorded on page 74, and this once again coming back to the written summary of this particular conversation. The last thing I'll mention on Dr. Carver in this podcast. Dr. Carver says, my purpose, speaking to this man, my purpose alone must be God's purpose, to increase the welfare and happiness of his people. If you remember from what he wrote back to Booker T. Washington, that basically said, yes, I am committed to do everything I can to improve our people and the way they live. Now, here is the closing statement before I go into a charge with you. In this conversation, Dr. Carver wrote, and this was in around 1928, just several years after the Ways and Means and all the inventions. Moving on, he lived another 20 years or so. But this was later on in his life. And Dr. Carver said, as I worked on projects which fulfilled a real human need. Think about that. Instead of just filling his pockets, which he never was a rich man in that sense, he gave it all away, poured it back into his laboratory. I can tell you stories on that too, and you can read on your own. As I worked on projects which fulfilled a real human need, forces were working through me which amazed me, in his own words. As I was working on these projects to fulfill a real human need, forces, the power within him, supernatural, problem-solving, unsolvable problems, what you can do with one peanut, forces, spiritual forces were working through me, which amazed me. That's his own word. I would often go to sleep with an apparently insoluble problem, his words. Just can't solve it. Apparently insoluble problem. I would often go to sleep with an apparently insoluble problem. When I woke, the answer was there. George Washington Carver and the power of the peanut. He was often asked, what books do you allow in your library? What other scientists and scientific books do you allow in the library? He said, I do not allow any other book except the Bible. The only book that was allowed in George Washington Carver's laboratory at Tuskegee was the Bible, because he knew that within this was the supernatural power of God to do supernaturally more than he could ever think, dream, or imagine by the power working within him. This is the only book you need. Do you read others? Do I read others? Oh, gosh, yes, I do. But as in this stage of my life, 80%, 90% of my reading now is strictly the Word. I've read enough of the other stuff. And I will continue to read, absolutely, other people's works. But this is what I'm drawn to. So perhaps I'm shifting into more of a George Washington Carver alignment, which I would be so honored to follow in that great man's footsteps. Thank you for the inventions of the peanut. So I want to give you some homework. And once again, we're going to put a link at the bottom of this podcast, at least in the U.S. I'd go to Amazon and get the same book if you're interested. I encourage you to study George Washington Carver. Study the heroes of the Bible. It doesn't have to be, from the 1st or 2nd century. It can be from the 19th and 20th and even 21st century as well. In the book, George Washington Carver wrote a letter in response to some friends about what advice you would give to other people, younger people. And he said this to a particular congregation. He said, I trust your congregation will learn that that true success, happiness, and power are embodied in 4 passages in the order named, in this order. So I'm going to give you some homework. I'm not even going to read the passages. Those of you that have ears to hear, that want to learn how to do more supernaturally, to abound more supernaturally in your business and your life, that if you truly are edified and encouraged and exhorted by this teaching, you will go to these verses, and we'll put them on the screen. You note them and you go study them and let God speak to you. Don't expect me to tell you everything God wants you to hear. You need to go to the Word just like Dr. Carver did. Here are the 4 from his life. Here are the 4 verses that he encouraged others in this order to study and to read. 2 Corinthians 3, 5 and 6. I'll say it again. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. 2 Timothy 2, 15. Again, 2 Timothy 2, verse 15. Proverbs 3, verse 6. And Philippians 4, verse 13. These are the 4 verses. These are the 4 that Dr. Carver suggested that he leaned on and relied on to do supernaturally more than you could ever think, dream, or imagine, to not only transform himself, but transform a people, transform an economy, transform a nation. Perhaps it's time you start believing, as I do, even in more of the supernatural abundant power that's probably dormant within me and dormant within you, that we need to unleash. And that is our unfair advantage, to unleash the power, the unlimited power of the Spirit of God through us in business, so that we can, just like Dr. Carver did, transform nations for the glory of God. May this have been an exceedingly abundantly encouraging and edifying message on the Kingdom Institute podcast. We'll see you next week as we once again come back with the Word and help teach and edify all of us how to unleash the unlimited power of the Spirit of God through us into our marketplace to transform nations for His glory. Thank you for watching the Kingdom Institute podcast. Please follow, like, and share this podcast with all of your friends across all of your social media channels. Thank you.